Guys, it's time for another face-to-face face-off, and this time it's between the new Toyota Prius and the Kia Niro. So we're gonna see which one I would buy, based a little bit on the spec and tech, but more so on the design, because that's what we're talking about here on this channel. First of all, let's talk about some of the spec and tech. So the new Kia Niro, all new for 2023, as we know. It looks great. I love this hatchback design, and it's available as a hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or a full electric car. The hybrid has a 1.6-liter four-cylinder engine with a lithium-ion battery and an electric motor for a total output of 139 horses. Pretty weak. However, the new Niro EV comes with a 201 horsepower electric motor and front-wheel drive only, and it has a claimed range of 253 miles. Not bad for commuting daily, I guess. And the starting price for the Niro is $26,590, and it comes with a 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty and a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty, which is unmatched. Now, the new Prius, however, if you take a look at the new styling on the Prius, it's a huge step up from the previous generations, in my opinion, and from what I've read and seen in a lot of other people's opinion too. But more on that later when we compare the designs from a front, side, rear, and also talk about the interiors of these two cars. And it comes as either front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and I think this is a huge advantage for Prius, because if you live in an area where you have a lot of snow during the year, you want to have all-wheel drive, and Prius offers that, while the Niro only comes with a front-wheel drive. And you also get 194 horsepower in the front-wheel drive version, and the all-wheel drive makes a little bit more, 196 horsepower. So pretty close there to the Niro EV with 201 horsepower compared to 196 in the Prius. And this Prius starts at $27,450, and it comes with a 3-year, 36,000 miles basic warranty and a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain warranty. Now, let's talk about these two cars and the designs of these. What's going on here? We have two very fresh, crisp, modern-looking EVs or hybrid cars here, which I'm really excited about. It looks like EVs these days, you have two camps when it comes to EVs. The ones that makes a blob to maximize range, maybe get 20 more miles of range, and then you have the other camp where you create some really cool designs. You might lose a little bit of range, but who cares? You have nice designs out on the road, so that's what we want. We don't want capsules riding around. That's a horrible idea, to have all cars basically look the same. So that's what I'm excited about, these two designs. So have a look at the Prius here, and as I said in the my first Prius design review video when it first came out, is that this is I think they kind of glanced a little side eye on Ferrari when they designed this front end, the SF90 specifically. It looks very much inspired by that design. Not a bad thing at all. It still has a very typical modernized Toyota look to it, and it looks clean. It's cleaned up. There's not this over-styling that was infecting the Prius, specifically in the Toyota lineup previously, where you have lines, crosses, angles, chamfers going crisscrossing each other. Here we have a much cleaner design, and I really like the treatment of the front end and the lower part here. I'm not so sure about this thing that sticks out here. I kind of want to cut that off and just have this be body colored and have a clean edge of this black graphics. But other than that, it looks like a very, very good looking car. However, when we look at this in the side view, there is something going on with the Prius that completely breaks one fundamental rule in car design that I haven't seen in any other car. And we're gonna have a look at that when we look at the side view. Now, let's talk about the Kia Niro here. This, to me, looks like the designers had a lot of fun designing this car. We got brand new graphics. I wouldn't call these bumper headlights because they sit a little too high for that. But where is the tiger nose? This is one thing I always like to do when I see a new Kia. Try to figure out where the tiger nose is. And you can see that we have it right here with this silver piece. We have this little dip creating the nose part and the nostrils on each side. And then we have this upswing in the lower part, red part, creating the tiger nose design of Kia. So it is intact in the Kia Niro, which is great. I also like these graphics. I think this looks, I would love to have this bar, this LED bar, be a little bit different thickness somewhere to create a little more interesting approach to the LED. Instead of just having it be the same diameter line, it looks a little cheap that way. If you want to add some premium feel, you want to have different thicknesses in the LEDs. I think that looks a lot better, but still, this looks pretty good. It looks modern, and I also like this outline for some reason, even though it doesn't feel like it's connected to anything else. It's definitely not connected to the grille. The grille has this angle while the headlight has this angle, so it feels like it's clashing a little bit in that area. The lower part with the big grille, I don't think this looks too oversized for this package. I think it works well to have this big grille in the lower part of the front end. I would maybe want to have a more defined bumper, but still, this creates a nice identity for Kia having this design. Now, let's have a look at the side views. Look at this, what's going on with the with the Toyota Prius. It looks weird. I don't know if when you first saw this in side view, it feels like something's just off with this design, and I know what it is. The roofline of this car, it sits in the wrong place according to the car design fundamentals book that you read as a student. You want to have the highest point of the roofline being right above the driver, and now it feels like if the driver sits here, we're still going up in the roofline. So the top point of the roofline is actually somewhere around here. And what this does, it makes it look like, you know, an elephant has sat on the front end or something. It looks like it's been squished right here because this angle is way too steep, way too flat. It should be steeper so that we have the top of the roofline, the point being right above the driver. So that is a very weird design detail of the new Toyota Prius that definitely sets it apart, but it also creates very strange looking proportions looking at it from a side view. Now, I did make a quick little edit to this because if you're like me, it kind of, you want to fix the problem and see what it would look like as a normal car. So here we have the before and here we have the after. So just morphing the roofline a little bit and kind of bringing this curvature forward and pushing the greenhouse this way, and this line creates a more normal looking car from a side view. Other than the roofline, I think the Toyota Prius side view actually looks really good. It has this sleek design to it, and I really like this design feature that we have here. This was part of the early sketches as well, so they wanted to really have this line in the production version. If you look back at the early sketches, it was still there, and that is this line that we have in the kind of middle of the side view. What I love about this is that it doesn't necessarily have a clear connection to the rear end, but they decided to have the cut line for the bumper be in the exact line as this feature, which I think is a nice touch because they could have just had this go straight in and then dip down like they normally do on cars. And on top of that, we have a nice shoulder line here as well, very sharp. So I like that they added some sharpness into the new Prius and this sleek design with these wheels that I think look really good as well. Kind of plants the car well in comparison to the wheels that we have on the Kia Niro down here. Not the most beautiful looking wheels, but at least it's not one of these flat EV wheels that tries to cover up everything. Yes, a lot of things is covered here, and unfortunately I don't think you can get those Lambo inspired Niro wheels that you can get on the plug-in hybrid and the internal combustion versions. I don't think you can get those for the EV, but you could always buy them aftermarket, I guess, and put them on there and do whatever you want with this design. But what I think is cool with this design is that if the Toyota designers were peeking at the Ferrari when they're designing the new Prius, I think the Kia designers were looking a little bit on the Volkswagen Golf to design this because of one single feature in this design, and that is the C-pillar. This C-pillar right here is something that is synonymous with Golf design. If the Volkswagen design chief came to you and said, go ahead and design the new Golf and you didn't implement this C-pillar, chances are you would be fired on the spot, because this is a very important detail of every single Golf up until today. And it's also implemented here in the Kia Niro. You can even get this as a two-tone so that this feature sticks out even more, and kind of like, yes, we did really get inspired by the Volkswagen Golf to emphasize that two-tone. And then you have a sharp shoulder line, which I really like, goes into the daytime running lights in the front end. And we have some cool graphics in the lower part, reducing the overall mass of this design to have it be black here, and also the black cladding right here around the wheel arches. It makes it look a little lighter than if we were to have everything being body color. Looking at the rear view before we jump in to the interior. So these are, as you can see, completely different approaches to design. The Toyota Prius, let's start with this. I think this looks good. However, there's one detail that I think makes the whole rear end droop down like it's been melting in the sun, sitting in the sun for too long. It's almost like there is some atom down here that pulls down, have this gravitational force pulling this piece down. It's like they've been playing around a little bit too much with the liquify tool here in Photoshop. So let me show you what that does. If we have the liquify tool and then we just drag down this feature, and it feels like they maybe took this a little too far in their design. It looks better than that for sure. But what I want to do is simply reduce the sharpness of this edge, because I think it's too sharp for anything else in the rear end. And when we reduce this and create an we can still have a dip here, but not as pronounced as we have right now. And I think that will actually help the design and make it look wider and not so droopy in the end points. And then I do like this light bar that we have. Yes, light bar is a trend of the last 5 years, but I think it suits the Prius to have a simple light bar, nothing complex in the graphics like we had in the previous generations, where they went crazy with some origami stuff in the taillights. Now looking at the lower part here, I think this graphic is very similar to the front end, but it works better here for the simple reason that we have a nice clean line at the baseline, and we don't have this other graphic sticking out further like we have in the front end. So you see we have this part sticking out almost in the middle of this line, instead of having it be connected in the bottom and creating a nice line, a solid foundation for these graphics like we have in the rear end. Now looking at the Kia Niro's rear end, I like this design as well. I think it looks cool. I like these boomerang taillights that we have. We actually have a little bit of a different thickness to this LED, which I'm looking for in LEDs to have it feel a little bit more premium. And then we have this nice circle or framing of the rear end, with this line going all around, kind of housing some key graphics in the middle. Looking at the lower part, I think this is maybe a little bit over stylized with these reflector lights here, and then we have a lot of lines and chamfers going on in the bumper. This could probably be simplified a little bit, but still, it's black, so it doesn't stick out too much. One thing I really like about the rear end on the Niro is that I think that every single model has this wing or spoiler up here, which I think is a good idea because it adds sportiness to the design, and specifically looking at it from a side view, it adds a nice send-off to the roof line going in, and also it just looks better to have a roof spoiler up there. Last but not least, let's have a look at these interiors. These are two very unique interiors when it comes to digitalizing, having two digital screens, both for the gauge cluster here and the infotainment screen. So starting with the Prius, you see that the gauge cluster sits all the way up here. It sits almost up on a pedestal here. So what this does is that you're looking at the gauge cluster not like we normally do through the steering wheel. Instead, you're looking at it from above the steering wheel, and I think that's a pretty good idea. I do like the integration of this gauge cluster. I think it has some nice framing around it, and the lines follow the lines of the display follows the lines of the molded materials in the interior, and that's what you want in a modern interior. Not just have it be like this screen, for example, which feels like it's just been stuck on here and doesn't necessarily have a proper home or a framing in the rest of the interior. I do like these lights, adds a little bit of a premium feel to this design, and also simplicity in the interior of the new Prius is something I appreciate. And I think the steering wheel looks a lot better than the steering wheel we'll have in the Kia. The Kia steering wheel looks like it could be from 15 years ago. It just doesn't look very exciting. It's very simple styling in this thing. But the rest of the interior, look at this. This is what I want to see if you're gonna have a big screen as both the gauge cluster and the infotainment screen. Make it a part of the interior, and that's what I think Kia is doing really well with the Niro and the EV6 as well. Because look at this, we have this line going from one end of the interior and then stretching all across the whole width of the interior. And if we look at the line of this screen, and specifically the infotainment screen, it follows the exact line of that part of the interior. And that's what I mean when I say that I want to have some sort of features around the displays that connects with a line flow into the rest of the interior to make it feel like it's actually intended to be there. And I think that's something that Kia does really well. So which one of these would I buy? I do love that Prius comes as an all-wheel drive, and that's pretty important, but looking at it from a design standpoint, I do prefer the traditional hatchback design of the Kia Niro. Just add some different wheels onto this, maybe lower it an inch or two, and you have a proper throwback to the 90s and the 2000s styling of hatchbacks.